Hello everybody, my name is Colton, Colton Iverson1 on Twitter, Pen and Grimoire on Instagram, and I am here today with a fantastic guest, Kat. Could you give yourself an introduction, please?
Hi everybody, I'm Kat. I am a writer, I am an editor from time to time. Just started editing, but I've got one book fully edited up. I can send you the link and you can put it in the links below.
Yes.
So I can get my guys some more
Yes.
sales. It's a sci-fi book. It's very good. It'll make you cry. It'll make you laugh. It's kind of sort of Firefly-ish, esque in a way. Good book though. It's called Chains of Prometheus. So I've edited that one. And then my books are Testament of an Archangel, which Colton likes, which we're going to circle back and talk about later. And then the other one I just released this weekend is Honor Bound, the series Honor Bound. First book is Awakenings. Easiest way to describe it is it's like a dash of X-Men, low-grade X-Men powers mixed with some DC Vigilante, and then a whole bunch of Marvel MCU character development. That is also available on Amazon. It's got an amazing cover that I really like. So if nothing else, buy the book to put the cover on the wall. You don't have to read it, but put the cover on the wall. And then, yeah, that's kind of me. Been writing for a while. Basically remarketing my books because I posted them originally years ago. I just never marketed them because I was lazy. Now I'm getting back into the whole marketing thing and fighting the algorithms and all that. So Honor Bound just came out this weekend, and then book 2 of Honor Bound should be out in July. Hopefully my artist finishes moving and then can get back to finishing the cover.
Wow.
He got halfway through.
Yeah. You are very busy. Got a lot going on. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Honor Bound I re-released because I was originally going to make a book 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, well, I can finish in book 2. I can do this.
Yeah.
And then I started finishing it and then realized I probably could have done a book 3.
Yeah.
But I already paid for 2 covers. I'm like, well, it's going to be 2 books.
Yeah.
So book 1 is like 210 pages. And then book 2, I think, was like 450, 500.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you probably could have done a third book.
I could have done a third book.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you think of your scenes, you're like, oh, this scene won't take too much. And then you start writing it and realize I have to put the words behind the concept. And the concept's really simple. Doing the words takes longer. So I did, I think I wrote like 13 chapters in like 3 weeks. I just kind of was like, got onto it. I was like, I know what I'm going to do now.
Yeah.
The thing with Honor Bound that I like, that everybody, all my readers that have read it like, is that it doesn't follow a prescribed formula.
Okay.
When you read it, you get really good character development. You're going with the characters through their emotional stuff. I've had actual teachers leave big old reviews saying how they would actually give this to their students to help them deal with mental health issues, help them deal with the fact that maybe. There's one review that I have posted on there, you know, it's a teacher that would teach advanced placement kids. And they're like, you know, a lot of times those kids have issues with being gifted or feeling different. They're like, this book would be perfect for that. Because it goes through a lot of, you know, self-acceptance and all that type of stuff. So it's a good book if you like to really get involved with your characters.
Okay.
You know, if you're in for a quick fluff read, that's Testament. Testament's fun. It's fun. It gives you some in-depth kind of philosophical ideas, but it's not like you're not going to be really super emotionally attached to the characters.
Yeah.
Honor Bound, especially book 2, will make you like throw your phone or your book. I've had some of my friends finish reading the book with the new stuff that I put. Mm-hmm. And one of them, she sent me on Twitter. She's like, oh my God. She's like, burn, witch, burn. I'm like, so you're happy with this, are you? She's like, yes, I hate you. She's like, I'm crying at work for 45 minutes.
I mean,
if
yeah,
you're crying.
I mean, at that point, you've definitely done your job as an author.
Like, you do. You're like, tell me more about your pain. Yeah. Tell me more about the pain I inflicted upon you. So she was happy.
Yeah.
And then the deaths that occur in the second book, which, spoiler, it's called Sacrifices. So there you go. She's like, I didn't even see that coming. Yeah. She's like, I was prepping for the other characters. Didn't even expect that one. You did it. I hate you, but it made so much sense. I was like,
but I love you at the same time because it's, yeah. I think that's like, So you've accomplished what I would say is what every author should ascribe to or aspire to, is to get to the point where people are reading your books and they're just obsessed with them and they just love the characters. Yeah, I don't know. Like I think that's really awesome that you've been able to do that. So you started in fan fiction. You've written tons of books in fan fiction. But, like, where did, like, stories begin for you? How did you get to this point where you're able to make people cry and laugh and hate your books, but love them at the same time?
It was in my fan fictions, actually. It helped that I was playing, and I was doing Supernatural Arrow fan fictions, and it helped that I was playing in a world with characters that already made people cry. Like, the Supernatural fandom's obsessed for a reason. Yeah. And then, like, the first 2 seasons of Arrow were really good. The rest, I stopped watching after season 4 because anyway, but the first 2 seasons were amazing. But to me, the biggest thing, and I think, and I've been having conversations about this with people, and I'm on Medium and I posted an article about it too, but is that I feel that on some level, because we writers, and basically any creator now these days, it's like you feel like if you're not putting out content, you're not going to get sales. You know, I mean, to a certain extent, obviously you have to put out content to make sales. Yeah. But, you know, there's people who are writing, 3-4 books every, a book every 3 months. And I'm like, you can do that. And I'm not, I don't have anything against those people. That works for you, great. But, like, to me, I don't want my books to feel like a formula. You hear a lot in writing, well, research your genre, make sure you know your genre, or else people aren't going to buy your book because they want blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I want my readers to be people who don't want what they expect. They don't want to read what they've read 5 million times before. And that with Testament, I was a huge Good Omens fan, still am. And I wanted to kind of do a little homage to that, but also explore some different concepts and take a different approach to the whole Adam, Eve, Lilith, Lucifer, Archangel thing. Yeah. And make it more of like, well, what if, what if what we've been told is a whitewashed version of what actually happened, because we've all heard it from this one perspective. Well, what about the other perspectives? I mean, as we all know, religion changes constantly throughout the millennia. Yeah. So it's like, well, what if, there's alwast 2 or 3 sides to every story. So why not tell that story? And in my fan fictions, I actually had people telling me, I was like, one of them was like, you're like Moffat and Whedon and all these amazing, great authors, and CW should hire you. And I'm like, thank you. Because none of my fan fictions were, in fan fictions, you get a lot of younger people who are like, 16-year-old girl gets involved in, which is fine. I mean, when you're 16, you're going to write stuff like that. That's cool. Yeah. To me, it was more of what areas have the shows not explored, and how can I make the characters develop in ways that haven't been explored in the show. So instead of, your typical monster hunt, like one of the books I did was, for those of you who are fans of Supernatural, you'll know this story arc. I had Gordon, and basically Gordon hooked up with some demons and some reapers, and actually was bringing a bunch of monsters out of hell, or out of purgatory, sorry. And then Gordon was teaching them how to hunt hunters. Oh. So he basically was like, he wanted to come back and get revenge on Sam and Dean, obviously. So he was like, well, so basically he hooked up with the demons, and we're like, okay, demons, go get a bunch of kids, convince them to come to purgatory so we can ride them out of purgatory. And so I had like 50, 60 monsters that had come out of purgatory that were then being trained by hunters on how to hunt hunters. So it flipped the whole script, because now the hunters are actually being hunted by the resurrected creatures that they had put in purgatory.
Okay, and some good,
so that was fun.
Yeah, some good revenge in there, and
some revenge, and then it made them have to react differently. Yeah, because all the things that they were used to looking for as hunters were now being flipped and used against them. They're like, well, wait, what? So yeah. Because I basically had like where Sam had gotten to where he was like doing, he basically had become sort of like he'd been uploading all the stuff from the Men of Letters onto a site for him, but then he was organizing hunters all around the country and making them much more efficient. Yeah. So then all the monsters were coming out. We're like, well, you're too efficient now. We're coming after you. Yeah. So it was a nice flip because it made them think differently. And then, I brought in a bunch of hunters we'd never seen, and it's how I turned them into werewolves from Fenris, and it went on from there. Anyway, that was like book 8
of book 8 of 15.
I could go on for days.
Yeah.
But that's where I started, was because to me it was just fun to play in the sandbox, but not be limited by the sandbox.
Yeah.
And to me that's what fan fiction should be. Isn't so much inserting yourself in the narrative, which is fun. I mean, we've all done it, but more of like, well, here's this world. What haven't they messed with yet?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I started. And then, like I said earlier, Testament spun off from one of my fan fictions.
Yeah.
And then Honorbound came from, at the time I wrote Honorbound, I was hanging out with parkour people. There's parkour people in Honorbound. So if you like parkour, Honorbound.
Cool.
I had a bunch of friends with really diverse lives. I knew somebody who was really into fashion, knew somebody who was into parkour, and I think the Marvel stuff was starting to come out, whatever. And I just kind of took all these influences and was like, let's play. So it's got 6 characters, and it's an ensemble book. So it head hops, but it doesn't get confusing. But they, and there were powers that I felt that, like empathy is a power that can actually really screw with someone. So I actually have a battle between 2 empaths.
Okay.
In book 2 of Honorbound. So the whole, which is a pain in the ass to write, because they were influencing these others' emotions to try to basically win the battle in a way, so they could basically sort of take over. And it's hard to describe, but it really made sense when I did it.
Yeah.
But it was like, you're messing with trust and loyalty and honest, and you're trying to find all the weak spots in the other person, and you're doing it all through emotion.
Yeah.
And so, I wanted to play with stuff like that I hadn't really seen people do. So I kind of was like, there you go. So I mean, it's kind of how I did that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, so you talked about the sandbox. It sounds like instead of like just a sandbox, you're using the whole playground.
Yeah.
So it's because a lot, like the sandbox, it's large, there's a lot you can do, but it's limited. But you're using like the whole playground to explore these things, which I believe fan fiction should be, because it's fan fiction. It's what the fans want to see or what fans want to do with it. So I think that's really amazing. I think it's really awesome that you're doing that. Yeah.
Well, actually, the next series I want to do, I'm going to do one. It's going to be a fluff book.
Okay.
It's going to come out. I haven't started writing it yet, but it's going to be called Sex or Death.
Okay.
Nice. If anybody is a fan of Eddie Izzard, you will know the Cake or Death sketch. It's an homage to that. But yeah, it's Sex or Death, and it's a prostitute assassin. But I'm borrowing the concept of the high-class prostitute from Firefly, Anara.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so it's just gonna be fluff. I'm like, I need a break from head hopping through 6 characters and sex sells. So throw some sex in there.
I mean, yeah, you gotta have fun. You can't let yourself get burnt out. So
yep,
that's awesome.
Yep,
that's really cool.
But then the one after that I want to do is it's gonna be the spinoff we all wanted for Supernatural, but no one ever got.
Okay.
Which is Women of Letters.
Gotcha.
But I'm gonna make it to where most of the characters are like older, so like 30, 40, 50-year-old people. And they're going to be from completely different countries, and then they're going to get they're all going to be part of the same group, but each book is going to introduce 2 separate hunters, and then at the 5th book they'll all come together and hunt down the big bad. But they'll all know each other ahead of time, but you're going to see 2 characters at a time, so each book's going to be a different hunt where you meet 2 different characters.
That would be really cool. I think people really enjoy larger ensemble casts these days. I think it's because of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how a lot of TV shows now are doing more and more of this. I think it'll be a really popular thing to bring a bunch of people together, and then in the last book have your Avengers Infinity War Endgame sort of battle and everybody coming together. So I think that's really cool. I think like connected universes is also becoming more of a popular thing.
Right.
Yeah. That's really cool.
and that's the thing is like Kevin Feige, God bless that man. Like for him to be able to keep track and figure out how to connect all of his stories the way he does for so long. It's like, dude, just freaking amazing. You know, it's like, you kind of saw that a little bit with Supernatural because, you know, they had especially seasons 1 through 5 and then 8 through 10. They had the overarching story arc. I like season 6 and 7, but they weren't overarching story arcs.
Yeah.
You had that connected overarching plot that interwove within the first 5 seasons, and then at the end it was like dun dun dun, you know. And to be able to kind of keep track of all that, and then do it on a level of that MCU is doing, I'm just like, I want to see his notes, like,
yeah,
like I want to see the software he uses to just be like,
yeah. He just has little sticky notes.
Sticky notes. He's got a whole wall. It looks like a serial killer wall or something.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like for him to bring somebody in as a director, at some point now he's got to be like, please tell me you've seen the prior 15 movies and 2 TV shows, because I ain't catching you up, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but so that's kind of what I do. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's a really good explanation of everything you do, and I think it is really cool. So I have a few questions about like being an editor. So how long, you said you're kind of new at it, but how long have you been an editor for?
I've been like editing for like 2 months. So
okay.
I'm not a pro.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like brand new.
Okay.
Basically what happened was I'm on a couple Discord servers, Right Hive and Indie Authors. And I was like, you know, just go ahead and see if anybody's interested. I'm like, hey, I wanted to do edit. Like, don't, I'm not a huge grammar person. Like that's, no. But like dev stuff, substantive editing, language, tone, that type of thing, because that to me is like, grammar comes, I mean, as long as it makes sense, you know, no one's going to really, most people are not going to care. Sure. But I like, one thing I've always liked is collaborating with other people to create something, you know, and it's fun. That's one thing fun as a writer and an editor helping a writer is you're like, okay, well, what about da-da-da-da, you know, bouncing back and forth. The one book I have finished editing, he did pretty good. I think we got it done in a month and a half.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he was very organized. It's like, and it was one of those things like the first couple chapters he sent me, and I totally saw the influences, and I was just like, he was going, his first like 2 chapters were super descriptive of like the world and the planet, but it was like you spent a lot of language on that and not a lot of language on the character. And I'm like, okay, I love your planet. And he's like, well, I really like Tolkien. I'm like, oh, yep, okay. You know, I'm like, you can still have this, but we need to, the characters are what people care about. So we sort of switched him. And by the end of that book, like by the end, he was in his flow. You know, and this is the first book he's ever written. And by the end, I was like, okay, good, you're good. You know, and like, you're good. This is flowing. I love what you're doing with the characters. You're making me cry. You know, when he did the whole thing with one of his characters, I was like, why did you do that? You know, so he did the thing. But he was really appreciative because it was just like, I'm like, you have a great concept, but you need some tweaking executing it. And I think more people need that type of help, I think, than grammar. I mean, you know, Microsoft Word, Grammarly, whatever, for the most part, that's going to knock all that out. You know, I mean, there was a Twitter thread where somebody was talking about quote tags and how quotations and commas and stuff. And it was this really informative thread. And I'm like, okay, but your average reader, as long as there's quotations around dialogue, that's all they care about, you know? And it's not, but like, I also understood there are times when I'm reading someone else's book or even mine where I forget. And like, I have like 2 pages of dialogue. I'm like, oh, who's talking? You know, just have to go back and make it make sense, you know? But to me, that's the most important thing. It's like, is your story going to be something, especially these days, that sucks people in? Like, you know, you've got that 30, 40 seconds. And if you're opening a couple chapters, and the thing that I think a lot of people do too, and I was actually talking to somebody else who I think maybe hired me for editing later. She's like, I'm stuck on my first chapter. I keep rewriting it. I'm like, stop rewriting. I'm like, you're not going to hit your flow till like chapter 5, 6, 7. You know, I'm like, make your first chapter, because that's actually what made me go back and rewrite or re-release Honor Bound. Was I still was not happy with the first chapter. After all these years, I'm like, this is still not right. And so I went in and I was like, so I went in and I fixed it finally. And I'm like, yes! And I was like, well, thank God nobody really read this book right yet. So then I just redid the whole thing. But it works better now. But I'm like, you know, get your first chapter on the page, keep going, because it's going to take you a couple chapters to know your characters. Know who they are, be in their brain, know how you want them to talk, know, you know, and so once you get that, then you can go back and be like, all right, now I can, you know, or tweak this and whatever. And that was what Vincent, who's the guy who wrote Chains of Prometheus, my first book that I edited, him and I were talking about, because he was like, when we were finished, I was like, all right, let's go back and make sure everything's flowing the way we want it to, because it's been a month since we've looked at the first chapter, you know? So I know we got it kind of fixed, but let's go back now that we know who all your characters are. Flip back, reread, make sure the flow's the same, everything's the same. He's like, that's a really good idea. I'm like, you're welcome. So he went back, he's like, I think we're good, but go ahead and reread it. So I'm like, yeah, we're good. You know, but and that's what I told her, and she's like, that's such great advice. I'm like, if you never get past your first 4 chapters, you're never going to finish your book. You know, it's a Word doc. You can go tweak it anytime. You know, it's not, you're not carving in stone.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I think what you said about how a lot of people, they don't need the grammar. They just need help with getting the right themes, the right tone, all that stuff. I think, honestly, because there's so many people writing so many books. And if they could just have that little push from somebody who believes in their story and will, okay, what are you looking for? And where do you want to be? And then you're like, okay, this is how we get there. I think that's the type of editors that we need more, because in traditional publishing, you know, most editors will just throw your book out within the first paragraph, first page. But and people are like, oh, how can they do that? My idea is so cool. But it's like, yeah, but you know, you gotta share that skill. So I love that you're going the path of, hey, I want to help you get there. I think that's amazing. What helped you get to that point where you're like, I just want to help people get the tone out, get the idea out, make people love the characters?
I've kind of always, like, I grew up playing music. You know, I was in band from like actually went to college for music performance. Don't do that. No, I loved it, but very low return of investment, which is why I quit. When I went to college, it was just when they're like, let's take music out of all the schools. So the standard joke for any musician was like, well, if you fail at performance, you can always teach. And then my private teacher, who was helping me prep for my college auditions and stuff, he had, oh man, I felt so sorry for him. He went from having one middle school and like one elementary school to go to every week. He's teaching a middle school and 6 elementary schools. So, like, oh, he's a Papa Dog.
He's messing with stuff, so I'm gonna hold him.
Get under the desk. But he would do like he would do his middle school every day, and then every day was a different elementary school.
Wow.
For an hour. And because I had kind of helped, I was like interning a little bit, so I was helping. I'm like, this is insane. You're only seeing these elementary kids once a week. You can't teach music like that. And, you know, he's doing all this driving, and it's just like, I was like, no. So anyway, but what I loved about music was when you're collaborating with a whole group of people, you know, and you kind of hit that moment when, you know, you're getting the song right, and then like you finish, and it's just like, oh, you know, that's the moment where you're like, yes, we did it, you know. The audience is quiet when the music dies, and everybody in the orchestra is just like, yes. So I've always liked doing something to achieve that with somebody else, you know, and like when I was working with Vincent, you know, as it went on and his writing got more tight and better, I was like, yeah. You know, I was excited for him and for me, because now I was seeing the story develop, you know, and I was getting involved with the characters. I'm like, yes, what's going to happen next, you know? And it was really cool to see the development and the growth from where he started to where he was, you know. And one of the books he's going to start, well, he's writing book 2 of the series now, but he has this amazing idea for a completely different series. And we've been talking about it, and I'm like, I so want to help you with this because it is going to be a pain in the ass. But if we nail it, it's going to be something phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we were talking back and forth. He's like, should I finish the Narrows series or switch to this? And I was like, your new book is so completely different in tone. I'm like, you're in the head of the Narrows characters from your first book. I'm like, just hit set book 2, get it done, get it out.
Yeah.
And then maybe take a break because it is such a flip. I'm like, it's going to be really hard for you to go over here and play in this massive world that you're creating and then come back to the Narrows in like 6-8 months.
Yeah.
I'm like, just get one more book out of these guys first. Play with this one and then go to that one. And he's like, good point. I'm like, yeah, you're already there. We hit the flow. Just keep going.
I completely agree. I mean, as most authors or artists who do any sort of project, you get so excited about the next thing that you kind of lose the drive for the current thing. And so I completely agree. You're like, even though this new thing sounds cool and shiny and fun, finish what you're doing, because you can do stuff with a finished product. You can't do stuff with an unfinished product.
Well, yeah, and that too, like the new book he's working on, it's gonna take so much plotting.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be very complex. And I was like, you're gonna want to get the Narrows out of your head. So I'm like, because if we don't plot this one, it's gonna be a train wreck. I'm like, we just need to know where we're going for this. And he's like, okay. I'm like, just.
Yeah. I completely agree, because I obviously have. I'm sure most people have plans for these big books, big series, big ideas. But yeah, if you don't plan it out, if you don't plot it out, it's not going to work out super well. So.
And back to the fan fiction thing, one thing that's nice about doing fan fiction is you don't have to do a lot of world building. It's already built for you.
You just have to.
You can just focus on the characters.
Yeah, and if you're obsessed with the story to the point where you're going to create it, you're going to know the world pretty well. Or you're at least going to have the base understanding to where if you say a phrase or do a thing, people are going to be like, okay, I know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So world building is hard for me. I've never been good at it.
But in Testament of an Archangel, it's all about world building.
You get there. But I'm not building the world. The angels are.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The world that already exists.
Yeah.
But that's like the one I was talking about, the One of Letters one. That's going to be hard. Not necessarily because it's going to be current time, so there's going to, I'm putting people into the current world, but the mythology, because I'm going to be using characters that come from various parts of the world, and I want to really kind of steep them in the culture of their countries. I'm going to be so much, which is fun, because, I mean, it's been a while since I've messed with mythology, but it's like, and I'm bad with villains. I'm really bad, and I kind of cheated it a little bit in Honor Bound because I don't have like a big villain monologue. You don't get this huge who is the villain thing. It's like when you see the villain, it happens so fast. It's just like, what? Yeah. But in the Women of Letters one, I'm gonna have to have a reason for I'm gonna actually have to work on villains. Villains are hard for me because they always seem cliche to me. Like trying to come up. So I'm trying to come up with a different concept for what pagan gods would be doing.
Okay.
But I think I have a cool concept. That's going to actually involve technology, and it's going to be something basically like where they've created like a meditation app that slowly tweaks people into like becoming part of their cult. using mantras and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like the mantras are actually part of the spell.
Cool.
And as more people get into it.
Yeah. I mean, I can see it happening. Everybody's getting 5-star reviews. People talk about it on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook. Like, I can see it working. I can see it being a very dangerous tool.
Yep. And then I want to actually have the pagan gods not be fighting each other, but they've actually agreed to split their followers. Because it's like, well, we have no power right now.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of going to be more of something like that, but like it slowly makes people like abandon their lives, and so that's where the hunters catch on to it because they're just like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But it's going to take some work.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, so like when it comes to creating stories and worlds, I think a lot of authors, at least this is me. Maybe other people don't feel this way, but I feel like if you're not actually writing, or if you're not actually getting stuff down on the page, that you feel like, oh, I'm not working on my story, or I'm not getting anywhere with it. But for me, one thing that I'm constantly working on is like, if you're world building and you're getting the stuff planned out, the characters put together, the villains, you're working on the story, and it'll be okay. You don't have to be satisfied as an author or a creative, say, oh, I've written 1,000 words today, or 2,000, however many. If you say, hey, I made a headway on my plot and I made some good connections, I say that's good enough for that day.
Well, and that's the other thing too, I see a lot like on Twitter and like the Discord groups and stuff, is what's your word count? What's your word count? I'm just like, there are best-selling novels that have been around for decades that are super thin, they don't have a ton of word count. And I'm like,
but the world building, the story,
the world building and everything,
characters, are super good.
It's the words, to me, it's like the words themselves are meaningless unless they're doing something useful.
Exactly.
Like I've got, I was kind of rereading some books like on editing and story building and stuff. And one of the things, I think it's subversive editing, which is good. It's for self-editors, like if you're editing your own books, it's really good. And she was talking about, she's like, if what you're writing is not serving the story, don't write it.
Yeah.
If you're just writing to fill fluff, and it may start out like that, and you may be like, oh, this is amazing. But when you're getting through it, and this is something that I've had to work with a couple of my editing people, is like, okay, this is cool, but why are we going here?
Yeah.
What I've got a couple that are pantsers, which is fun to an extent, but I'm like, why? Where are we going? It kind of drives me nuts, because when they send me stuff that they're working on, like ideas, my first thought is, okay, where are we going with it? What's the idea? How is this going to affect your characters? Blah blah blah.
Why should I care about this?
Why should I care? Exactly. And they're like, well, I don't know yet. I'm like, okay, well, let me know when you know.
We'll figure it out on the way.
We'll figure it out on the way. And it's like, I'm not a super plotter. Like, I don't plot every single chapter.
Yeah.
But when I start writing, I usually have an idea of the beginning, middle, and end. And a rough idea of where I want my characters to end up. I'm like, if you don't have a destination at some point, you just, it's getting very confusing. So, like, it's going to be like driving before Google Maps. Like, I'm going somewhere, I don't know where.
I'll see it along the way, then I'll turn around, and then I'll miss the exit. Yeah.
For those of you who are older, you all remember Thomas maps. It'd be like flipping pages on the Thomas guides and driving in the crack, that type of thing. And so I feel like you at least need to have a rough idea of where you want to end up.
Yes.
At least roughly. Like, it's going to change. Like, when I started writing Honor Bound, I was kind of planning on killing off one character, and I ended up killing off a completely different character, because I was like, this sounds more fun. This is actually going to make more sense. Yeah. And when I told my friend that, she was like, yeah, this works better than if you killed her off. I was like, yeah. So things change, but you need to at least know roughly where you want to go. And like with me, my real job, I'm a massage therapist. So 4 days a week, I'm doing massage. I do so much plotting and writing while working on my clients. Yeah. Because it's a dark room. It's got chill music, and because I'm being forced to do something other than look at a screen, it's very tactile. My brain just kind of goes off. I've written most of my books while doing massage. Yeah. And when I was really deep into like the fan fictions and Honor Bound, I had my own business at that. This was pre-COVID. I had my own business, and I would literally start busting out laughing because I thought of something funny, and I'm like, oh. And these were all my regulars, I didn't do this with the new clients, but my regulars are like, what'd you just figure out? I'm like, oh my God, let me tell you. They all knew my story by the time it came out, because I would just start going while I'm working on people. I've got 6 hours in a dark room with calm music. Yeah. Perfect mindset to be creative. True. And I think sometimes people get so, I have to be in front of the computer. You don't do your best thinking necessarily in front of a computer staring at a screen. A lot of times when I'm driving home or whatever at night with the music on, that's when you start getting creative. It's like your creativity comes not necessarily when you're looking at the screen. By the time you're looking at the screen, you should hopefully have an idea of what you're going to put on the screen, put in there, and be excited. And it's like, I know some people who are writers who are very prolific, who are like, I hate writing. I'm like, they're like, I like creating, but I hate the actual process of writing. I'm like, well, I get that. Yeah. But like, you know, you need to have at least some vibe of what you want to do before you start typing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I really do. Well,
and it's like, even if I became like a super wealthy bestseller at some point, I think I'd still do massage.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it gets me away from my desk. It gets me moving. And it's just like, I noticed I'll get in there and like, I immediately start just doing my thing, you know, and it's like, it exercises a different part of your brain because it's all tactile, you know, and why not? 3 days, you know, 3 days a week, just get up and then you're talking. You're actually interacting.
Yeah. Interacting with people is important.
Socializing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think it works for me, but.
I agree. Well, Kat, it's truly been a pleasure being able to have you on and really pick your brain, and because you have so many fantastic thoughts, and you have some really awesome theories and ideas that I think work really well for not only like being a like developmental editor, but also just being an author and creative. And I think it's really cool. Do you have any last minute advice? Like, if you had one thing you could say to a new author, what would it be?
Don't worry about selling your books. Like, for one, you ain't gonna sell them quick. I mean, unless you get really lucky, it ain't gonna happen. Like, don't worry about being commercial.
Yeah.
You know, and I see this, and it just drives me nuts. Is, you know, if you're getting into writing and you're like, well, I just want to do what everything has already been done and copy paste in a way, it's like, well, then why should I read your book versus this book? You know, and I know there's some genres, especially like web novels and stuff now, where people are like, if you're not doing the thing, we hate you. I'm just like, why am I going to waste time reading stuff I already understand? No, like, and I get that there's some people, you know, they love the genre and they want it, fine, whatever. But as a writer, to me, I write because I want to put something out that isn't normal. Isn't normal? We're all weird, but isn't something that people have already done. And on some level, everybody's done, you know, all stories have been done. But if you're writing, write for what you want to do, and then, you know, obviously make it to where people are going to be able to follow and understand your concepts. You know, you don't want to lose your readers, but don't fall into the trap of A, B, C, D, repeat. Because at that point, to me, it just becomes like if you were just going to a regular job.
Yeah.
You know, and I know some people do that and they make tons of money, and good for them. But for me, that, like, why am I writing then? Why am I spending hours upon hours and hours writing if I'm not really creating anything new, you know? And the other thing I would tell you all to do is get ergonomic keyboards and mice. Save your wrists. Speaking as a massage therapist, all my clientele have messed up necks and backs. It's because of this. So get like vertical mouse,
okay.
like, vertical mouse, ergonomic keyboard, and get like wrist pads.
Okay.
It's saved. I'm so much more comfortable now typing and stuff than I used to be. I was getting so much arm and neck and whatever. Yeah. I switched to like the vertical mice and the ergo keyboard. I can go all day writing. Don't have a problem. Save your back. Because if you burn out your wrists and your fingers, you know, I mean, you can write, you can do the, you know, talk to text stuff, but it's going to hurt. Yeah. And then you have to pay for surgery. And authors don't make enough money.
True.
We don't have healthcare.
That's true. We have to find our own healthcare.
But. Do you have any more questions for me? I ran off and ranted.
No, at least for now, I'm sure I will invite you in the future because I think you have lots of fantastic, amazing ideas. So
cool.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Kat. Everybody who's watching, all of her stuff including all of her books that have come out or are coming out very soon, will all be in the description below. The stuff that she's worked on, all of her things, because
I'll send you my Wattpad links.
Yes, yeah, because she's
You want to
doing a
start
lot.
here?
Yeah, she's doing a lot. She's going crazy. So yes, but
Well, it was nice chatting with you. Thank you for inviting me.
of course. And everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.